What's up, YouTube? At the time of recording this, I have no idea what the thumbnail for the video is even going to be. But let's dive into it anyway. So, decided to play through some Jund Shadow. For one of the things that has always drawn me to the Shadow archetype is the ability to be proactive when you want to be proactive and reactive when you want to be reactive, and some sort of a combination of the two when you're not really sure where you want to be. And currently at the moment, I'm kind of leaning towards trying to be more proactive. I was being reactive in a world full of like the One Ring and Bowmasters and delighted halflings and Urza's sagas and stuff like that. Sounds pretty awful. So I've been messing around a lot more recently with the aggressive variations of Shadow, the Rakdos, the Jund. I thought about breaking out Golgari again. That was a really fun time. If you haven't seen that video, I have a link to the YouTube down below and you can go check it out. But we had this variation of Golgari Shadow with like Urza's Sagas, the basic black green good stuff, Rock Shell, Thoughtseize, Shadow, Goyf, and actually really enjoyed that variant. Might break it out again at some point, but at the moment, trying out Little Jund. And so let's go through some of the card choices, kind of what I'm thinking with some of these. So if you're getting ready for a local event, maybe you got an RCQ or something coming up, maybe Jund Shadow's a choice for you. So the big reason in my mind to look at Jund Shadow right now is scam is one of the biggest archetypes in modern. Not even necessarily the straight up red black scam list, but like we've seen blue black scam, blue red scam, black whatever scam, black white scam, and just like griefs everywhere. And the red base gives you really good ways of not only dealing with grief on the board with like Unholy Heat and Lightning Bolt and Terminate, but recovering from grief if you've been grieved. So Kroxa, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Ragavan, all really good ways to help rebuild after your hand has been destroyed, or give you resilient threats that either more than replace themselves when they hit the board, or give your opponent some like overwhelming value engine that you just need one of to maybe win the game. Naturally, since we're a Death Shadow deck, we've got the black, we've got Shadow, Thoughtseize, Orcish Bowmaster in this case, some Kroxas, because I really enjoy Kroxa's ability to like get your opponent from 20 to 0. I think that's something that a lot of Grixis shells right now are missing. You see people leaning towards like Dreadhorde Arcanist recently, which I get it, but at the end of the day, I think all Dreadhorde Arcanist is doing is giving you like another potential cantrip. It's not really like closing out the game, so I don't think it really improves the matchups that you were having trouble with already. Or puts you in a much better position against the ones you were struggling with. But at the end of the day, like if you want to play Arcanist, play Arcanist. Me personally, I don't really find that version of Shadow appealing. Spoiler alert for one of the matches in this league. Ledger Shredder, still a really good card. So I wouldn't just like go out and cut Shredder for Arcanist on a whim. If you want to, if you feel it's the right choice, and do it. But otherwise, I'd kind of be a little hesitant. The rest of the card choices, green. We are very extraordinarily light on the green. As you can see in the main deck, just 4 main deck Tarmogoyf is the only green card. No Wrenn and 6, no Abrupt Decays, Maelstrom Pulse, nothing like that. And the sideboard, all we've got is 2 Veil of Summers. I'm going to count Giganta as a red card because for the most part, like you don't care about the green hybrid symbol in there at all. There's no reason to care about it. So we're going to call it a red card. So the sideboard, just the 2 Veil of Summers, really good against Scam. Decent against mURktide, but not like, it's not in there for the mURktide matchup. It's in there for Scam. Let's be real. Or any sort of like Thoughtseize mirror. Rest of the main deck, 4 Bolt, 4 Unholy Heat. I really wanted to maximize the number of ways I had of dealing with like a turn 1 Grief, turn 1 Ragavan, something like that. The reach off Bolt, obviously very, very nice. 1 Fatal Push, 2 Terminate to round out the removal sweep. I've had people in previous Jund videos say like, well, why not Dragon's Rage Channeler? Why aren't you running Dragon's Rage Channeler? In the nicest way possible, it's because I think as a threat, Channeler is shit. Like, you can agree to disagree, and you're more than welcome to go play Channeler and put up results with it and prove me wrong. It's been bad for me. I don't anticipate myself trying to play it because it has not felt good. You can go watch previous videos where we've played Channeler and see what I mean with that, but I just don't think it's where you care to be. Like, dies to Fury, obviously, like 90% of the stuff in our deck dies to Fury, but playing out turn 1 and not giving, or playing out a Channeler turn 1 is more often than not, to me, the worst feeling play in this deck imaginable, because you want to be either hand disruption into threat, like hand disruption into Goyf, or you want to be Ragavan into removal spell for their blocker, snowball with Ragavan. Channeler just does not play into those game plans at all. As you'll see in the video, we really don't have a difficult time getting Delirium online, so the argument of like, hey, Channeler helps you turn on Delirium, great, awesome, play Channeler. I'm not intending to here. So the only change I would consider would be finding room for Street Wraith. Giganta is pretty free. Like right now, I don't think Street Wraith is that good for us when some of the top decks in the format, like the opposing mURktide decks, the scam decks, stuff like that. You got a bunch of random wizard decks running around, Flame of Venor, whatnot. Lightning Bolt can become a pretty scary card if you're not careful. So instead of running the Wraiths, opted for the Giganta, the extra copies of Interaction. But if you did want to run Wraith, you could very easily cut like 2 Inquisition, push 19th land, something, run 4 Wraiths, go crazy. But for me, I really wanted to see like those 4th, 5th lands for Fable, for Kroxa. Sideboard, 2 Turok, 2 Blood Moon. Really weird to see Blood Moon in like a tricolor deck, but at the end of the day, if we want to, we can just be a Rakdos deck post board. We can board out all the Tarmogoyfs if we like really dead set on Blood Moon. But honestly, if I get to go like turn 1 Hand Disruption, turn 2 Tarmogoyf, turn 3 Blood Moon, and lock myself out of future Goyfs, that's fine. A-okay. I've got a Goyf. I've disrupted. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. An Ancient Grudge, an Alpine Moon. The Alpine Moon is more for like Urza's Sagas than it is for big mana decks like Tron and Amulet. Like, it comes in those matchups, but really having a cheap way to interact with Saga against like Hammer Time and Jund Saga and stuff like that is pretty nice. 2 Veil of Summer for the Thoughtseize matchups. A 3rd copy of Terminate. 2 EE. Stone of Eric, I'm trying out. I'm not huge on this card. It really just like fluctuates with how often you're seeing the kind of Samwise Gamgee decks and Yawgmoth and stuff like that. If you're not seeing a lot of those, then I don't think Stone's very good. But if you are, could be reasonable. And 2 Nihil Spellbomb. Since I'm not running Dolthy, Spellbomb the next best like Grave Nuke piece. And then Giganta is our companion. So again, if you have questions about card choices in the deck, I guarantee you I've got a video out there on the YouTube channel about trying out that exact thing, and you can go find it and see how it's been for us before. But if you want to ask, like, why not Channeler? I don't think it's good. Why not Street Wraith? I think it's a liability right now. Why not Ren and 6, whatever? I don't have room for anything I want to cut for it. That's about the best answer I can give. But if you have questions, as always, I do recommend like leaving them down in the description below, and I will try to answer everything that I can. So, match number 1. Pretty good hand on the draw. We've got Ragavan, we've got Removal. Roxa, Thoughtseize is fantastic pickup. Assuming we're up against Scam. Yep. So we get to take a Fable, leave him with a Dolthy, leave him with a Fatal Push. But we've got plenty of answers for the Dolthy. Get in a couple points of damage. I like attacking with the Ragavan here instead of Ragavan plus removal spell. 1, because we know they have the Fatal Push. So if I draw another Thoughtseize, this is really good. But 2, if I happen to hit like a Lightning Bolt or a Push off of their library, then Ragavan became like 2 mana, 2 damage, draw a card, kill a dude. That's a really good trade-off. And then here, didn't dash Ragavan because I wanted to hold up Unholy Heat for when they hard cast Grief. And they did and just immediately scooped. So that was kind of cool. It's really nice to be a little bit validated in game 1 against Scam, where you get to show them like Croxa and Fable and this really powerful cards and just say like, yeah, deal with it. Sideboard against Scam. Boarding out a bunch of Ragavans on the draw against like Bowmaster and stuff. Boarding out some hand disruption. Bringing in the Stone of Eric. Bringing in the Nihil Spell Bombs. The extra Terminate. Stuff like that. And again, as we can see, like right off the bat, opponent had a turn 1 Undying Grief, and we were able to find one of these mini red removal spells to deal with it right away. So, really nice to have that gameplay that we don't necessarily have with some of the other Shadow variants. Having so many of these red removal spells means we can fight over stuff early and often. Obviously, it does make it a little bit more awkward against decks like Blue-White Control or Omnath piles that are either evoking their creatures or just like don't care about spot removal. But I think those decks are a lot less prevalent right now than they have been. So, trying not to focus too heavily on them. So Bowmaster in response to the Fable, the draw, try to get some Bowmaster triggers. They have the Bolt. If they had like a Bowmaster of their own or a Fatal Push, Terminate, then we could have veiled that. But fortunately, opponent just had a Bolt, so we have to go to our turn. And I will say, we're still in match 1, so we haven't gotten to see it too much. But Fable of the Mirror Breaker was really good for me this league. So obviously we'll see it more as the league goes on. But I just wanted to bring it up while we were in like this early match stage. I thought the card really overperformed for me. And as you can see, we've got not a lot of trouble getting Delirium online. We're sitting at our 4 card types pretty easily. So Unholy Heat just dealing with everything we needed to deal with. If you weren't sure before, Unholy Heat is a messed up Magic card. The fact that it's going to take care of just about everything you need to. And then Veil of Summer, also a messed up Magic card. Stop your hand disruption, draw a card. Can't target my stuff. Nice. This is on to match number 2. Really clean 2-0 win over Scam there, round 1. Really love to see that. Obviously, I would like an extra land here. But with turn 1 Ragavan getting to connect, like I don't feel too bad. cast their lightning bolt. They're already down to 11, and we've got double bolt in hand, so that's something. Fortunately, we do have to spend a couple spells to deal with Tarmogoyf. Clear out the way for our Ragavan. So opponent's got 3 cards left. Giganta. This could be like just Jun mid-range. I'm assuming it's Jun Saga. Not necessarily based off the Ragavan. Like, before I even see the Saga. Just because they've got Giganta, and usually don't see Giganta in like Jun mid-range. You see it in Jun Saga. But I also just wouldn't see Jun lands and expect traditional Jun mid-range right now. Fortunately, follow-up Goyf means we don't have the ability to punch through 1 point of damage. But we'll go ahead and fire off the bolt in case we pick up like the one of Fatal Push off the top or 4th Bolt or something. We could like end the game right here. Attack in case they chose not to block. Then here is the joy. Let's pause real quick so you can think about this at home. What might be happening here? What might be going through our opponent's head? What you can take advantage of as a shadow player. My opponent's got a 6/7 Goyf and a 7/8 Goyf. If they go to attack with like just the 7/8 Goyf, then we have the chance to maybe like fetch, shock, bolt ourselves, or just fetch, bolt ourselves to outgrow their Goyf with our shadow. Get to eat that, get a threat off the board. If they don't attack at all, then that's a pretty good sign that they probably don't have a removal spell, because they would have just removal spelled instead of playing or getting the second construct. Or the second construct out of that saga. If they attack with both of the Tarmogoyfs, then we are in this like fantastic position that you only get to while playing the card Death Shadow. Oh, sorry about that. That was probably loud. Get into this awesome position where opponent probably doesn't understand the way combat math works with Death Shadow. So if they swing in with both of their Tarmogoyfs, we get to, let's say, block the 7/8. The 6/7 deals damage to us, puts us down to 3. The Tarmogoyf, the 7/8, deals damage to the Shadow, but does get to trample over if they assign damage, so we'd be dead to that. But instead, if we block the 6/7, then the 7/8 deals damage to us, puts us down to 2. The 6/7 deals 6 to the Shadow. Shadow looks up after combat and says, all right, I've got 6 damage marked on me. Am I dead? Well, I've got 2 life, so I'm at 11/11, so I'm not dead. I'm 11/11 with 6 damage marked on me. Cool. And then we have bolt the token and kill them on the backswing, because they'd be going to exactly 11 with the life gain off the Tarmogoyf. We'd be falling to exactly 2 to make our Shadow an 11/11. So yeah, we get kind of bailed out there by opponent not understanding shadow combat math. So they could have just attacked with the 7/8, which would be okay. But honestly, I think if they just like go to their next turn and draw, that's probably their best option. They've got probably a lot more good top decks than we have, like another Ragavan or another Wrenn and 6 seals the deal. A Ragavan likely does. Another Bolt, any removal spell, just like a whole bunch of stuff in their deck. But just remember, in these situations, take the extra 2 seconds to think about things like trample. So if you throw the Shadow in front of their 6 or their 7/8 Tarmogoyf and just think like, okay, well, the 6/7 deals damage to me. Shadow grows to a 9, or what was I at? I was at 9. Shadow grows to a 10/10. It outgrows the 7/8. you'd be right in that. But when your opponent assigns combat damage, they assign damage before shadow grows. So if they assign 6 to you with the 6/7 Goyf, and then the 7/8 deals or assigns the 4 lethal to the shadow, they still have 3 to trample over with. So the 3 trampled over plus the 6 of the other Goyf is 9 exactly, and you would be dead. So think about that. Take a second to think about it before you just like auto assign blockers and say, I'm going to block the bigger dude. Doesn't matter. Shadow lives anyway. Does matter. Does matter. So we get to end of turn, clear out the blocker, tap, attack, steal a game. Always feels nice to steal games because of things like shadow math. I got like a hair stuck in my mouth. So sideboarding against Jund Saga. As you can see there, I don't think I brought in Blood Moon. Yeah, I didn't bring in Blood Moon, but I brought in Alpine Moon. Bringing like the Terminate. I've had times before where I brought in Turok, but I'm a little less excited about it at the moment. Board out a bunch of Ragavans because of like Ren and 6, Bowmaster, opposing Ragavan, stuff like that. And then Nihil Spellbomb, I was kind of on the fence about. I thought about bringing it in, but I don't think like Ren and 6 is really what I want to be fighting over on the draw. If they were maybe like a big grave value version of Jund Saga with like Soul of Windgrace and stuff, I'd be a little more inclined on, or Croxa, I'd be a little more inclined, but I don't think I want to bring it in just for like Tarmogoyf from Ren 6. I also I can't remember if I saw an Holy Heat game 1. That would be a reason to think about it a little bit more, but usually you want to be getting Spellbomb down like pretty aggressively in the early turns, and a lot of times in situations like this, it just doesn't look good. So kill a couple constructs. Mostly killing constructs so that my opponent wouldn't have the ability to go get like a Springleaf Drum and have extra mana. And feel really good about Triple Shadow into Engineered Explosives. Um, yeah. Like, you could say, oh, play 2 shadows, play 1 shadow, whatever. It'd have to be at least 2. But you get into an awkward situation where the Tarmogoyf just gets to eat the shadows anyway. So I think playing the triple shadow is fine, and your opponent's got to have like this 1 or 2, maybe 3 of EE right then and there. And I'm pretty okay with playing those odds. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I still think I put myself in a better position to win by playing out the 3 shadows instead of just like putting myself in a position to not lose by playing out 2. All right, so hoping to find the 3rd land so we can get Fable down. You get to kind of Bowmaster, pick at this Ren a little bit. So yeah, find the 3rd land, fantastic. 3rd land, 2nd Bowmaster would have been good. Goyf would have been fine. Hand Disruption, whatever. Like a whole lot of live draws. And then when our opponent goes and Besages Fable, like, that's amazing to me. Free land. I had the token. They did kill the token, but I had the token that they had to deal with. I got another Fable. Get the free Croxa ditch on the Fable. We know that they can't flash in a Bowmaster here with only Saga, so that's cool. Then opponent scoops to Croxa because, you know, that card's pretty difficult to deal with. So really good showing there for Sagas. Or for the Fables. Sorry. Match number 3, basic swamp pass. So I'm assuming like mono black coffers. Nope, just scam. Could still be mono black scam. But let's talk about turn 1 sequencing a little bit first. So I bobble here. I bobble them and see Fable the Mirror Breaker. And that's to try to decide whether or not I want to lead on Thoughtseize or I want to lead on Ragavan. So now I know they're on Scam. And because I know they're on Scam, Thoughtseize looks a lot more appealing because of things like Fatal Push or scamming a Grief here. If they have a threat, I've got a lot of good answers. But if they like scammed a Grief on their turn into and took my 2 Terminates, I'd be in some trouble. But we do get to just take away something here. Take away the Dolphy because my opponent can't scam the Grief next turn. They could ditch the Fatal Push to just evoke the Grief, but that's pretty fantastic on my end. Like, I'm just going to try my best to run them out of cards. If they want to Fatal Push my Ragavan, cool. I know they've got a... I think I know they have a Bloodstained Mire, a Grief, and an Unknown. So if they just hard cast the Grief here, then I get the removal spell on it. And I'm in a pretty solid position. Offer up the trade because, as always, I'm pretty okay with holding on to my Terminates if I don't need to use one. But, like, I'm pretty okay with just letting them take Terminates because at the end of the day, I'm in a really good board position here. They don't have great attacks into me. Yeah. Kind of outvalue, run them over. Again, Fable looking pretty solid. We talked about sideboarding against Scam round 1. Like, Inquisition, pretty easy cut because it doesn't hit any of the Evoke elementals. Ragavan, especially on the draw, pretty easy cut. Bobble ourselves, see a Lightning Bolt on top, so we'll keep that to fight over the Ragavan. If our opponent does want to fire off like an Undying effect to save it, I'm okay with that. They have Bowmaster to just clog up the ground really, really well. Last card is a Marsh Flats. So all we got to do is find a way to deal with the Dolphy, and then we have really got the mid to late game like locked up here with Proxa, Bowmaster, Fable, Shadow, Veil, blah blah blah. I could have kept the Proxa, but I'm not getting it back anytime soon. So I kind of figured I'd rather just trade it for live cards. Like, if I ditch something else, I'm not getting closer to Kroxa. If I hard cast the Kroxa, it gets exiled anyway, so why not just jump off that plan and stick around with the other stuff that I've got going on. Yeah. Opponent scoops to our Tarmogoyf reflection of the Mirror Breaker value. On to match number 5, 4, something. Might be 5. Yeah, this is match 4. So match 4 up against Prowess. A little surprised they just fire off both of the baubles right here. Like, I assume it means they didn't hit their second land drop, which is fine. But maybe, like, fire off one and hope to get lucky. We could hold on to the heat, try to get to Delirium, but I kind of want to play the odds of them needing a mutagenic growth right now. If they don't have it, I can just get the Soul Scar off the board. Ranger's Firebrand. So if you haven't seen this card, it's one red one red sorcery from the Lord of the Rings set. Deal 2 damage to any target the ring tempts you. I can't imagine that's a fantastic card. I don't know how good like the ring tempting you is in their deck. Obviously, you could set up some situations where like Swift Spear gets to attack through a bigger blocker, but I think not killing like a Scammed Grief or Scammed Fury or something like that and being sorcery speed, at least to my naive non prowess player eyes, seems not worth it. What do I know? So they want to kill the shadow, that's fine. We've got the Goyle. Yeah, like Ranger's Firebrand, the Goyf at Gigantha. We've got Terminate for the Gigantha. So we just need like a couple attacks in, and hopefully we can cross the finish line before they get another Underworld Breach set up. All right, so double bolt plus dart the Goyf makes me think they have another breach in hand. We know they have a Gigantha. They could have like Gigantha 5th land breach or something. Hard cast light up the stage. So no 5th land. Not that we really care about 5th land Gigantha. I care more about like breach. But at the end of the day, being a Jund deck and not a Grixis or a Dimir deck means I can't really stop breach from resolving. I just need to try my best to finish the game before it does. As expected, opponent does have a breach here. We'll scoop to that. Not so much because breach kills us, because I don't think they had a lava dart in the yard, but they could double bolt us down to 1 and then draw multiple cards off Bobble. And then we wouldn't be able to fetch, play Gigantha. Like our outs just become incredibly slim. Now, if you're playing in like a premier event, I'd say play it out. Just see what happens. Maybe they can't kill you top deck a bolt. But sometimes, just in league play, it's okay to just take the mental W and say, yeah, cool. I'm gonna not deal with this at the moment. I could have been wrong. Maybe they did have a dart in the yard and I was just dead, but I don't think they did. I can't remember if I talked about sideboarding against Prowess, but mostly it's just boarding out things like Thoughtseize that deal you unnecessary damage. Boarding out Ragavans, because Lava Dart is a hell of a card for Ragavan to fight through. Boarded in Spell Bombs to help fight over Underworld Breach. Same reason I boarded in Stone of Eric, so that if I'm able to kill some creatures early, they can't breach back any value. I think if you take value breach off the table, then actual breach becomes a lot worse. Or like if you take value breach off the table, then breach in general becomes worse. Because there's really not that many times that you're able to set up actual factual lethal with a breach, like bolts and stuff, if your opponent is not letting you set up actual factual breach. Then I think I boarded out a couple Bowmasters. I know they have like Mishra's Bauble and Manamorphose, but they also have Lava Darts and all that stuff. And I just don't want to spend 2 mana to trade down for 1 if I can avoid it. Plus, the only creature that Bowmaster is good against is Channeler without Delirium. and the odds of being in a situation where they have Channeler and no Delirium and you can Bowmaster down is fairly low. Pick your battles. This was trying to set up killing this Giganta. Like, I got a little fortunate that they went for the Inquisition in response because they probably wanted to stop me from maybe Croaksing, but being able to Inquisition, bait the Tormod's Crypt, and then Unholy Heat down the Giganta was pretty nice, if I do say so myself. Hold up Stone of Eric in case they've got a value breach that they want to fire off. They don't, so get to go to let's go into game 3, or is this going to match 5? I can't remember. Let's find out. Yeah, game 3. Game 3 against Mono Red Prowess. Pretty easy mole on a 1-lander. Reasonable keep. Like, if I find a black source in the first turn and get to Inquisition on 1, or even like red source kill a Soul Scar Mage is really good. But just something to be able to curve like live spell into Tarmogoyf. I'll be mana efficient, get the Goyf down. Could go for the Lightning Bolt. So attack here, attack in means this has to be a mutagenic growth. Since I already have an instant in the yard, mutagenic growth would just get one of their threats up to a 4 or 5, and it would just eat the Tarmogoyf. That's not a trade I'm interested in making at all. If Goyf was a 4 or 5 and would trade with the threat, then I would take that. Because then I'd be able to like block, take a mutagenic growth, eat a threat, and that would be absolutely fine. That's a 2-for-1 on my end. But just letting my Goyf get eaten is not really where I want to be. And it looks like they top decked another mutagenic growth. So this is kind of what I was talking about, where I would like to trade. Obviously, the Tormod's Crypt doesn't allow that. But I'm still not in a bad spot. Like, they're down to 1 card. I've got the biggest threat on board. If I can find another land to play Kroxa, get Kroxa back, we're in a reasonable spot. Then opponent giving up a bunch of equity to get Goyf off the board, trade with the Swiftspear. So like, I'm A-okay with that as well. So now if I can just find something like a black fetch or basic swamp to get back Kroxa, then I think I can close out the game before they can kill me. EE's fine. Make sure when you have a situation like this that you're sequencing correctly. So if I crack the EE, it takes out my spell bomb. I can blow up the EE, hold priority, sacrifice my spell bomb, but then my spell bomb resolves, then EE resolves, kills the Swiftspear. Swiftspear stays in the yard. So what I want to do is sacrifice the spell bomb, targeting my opponent, hold priority to that sacrifice, and sacrifice the engineered explosives so that the EE will resolve, blow up the Swiftspear, and then the spell bomb resolves and nukes their yard. If you don't hold priority and let the spell bomb resolve, then you don't get the Swiftspear with the EE. Make sure you're sequencing that correctly if your goal is to get the Swiftspear, the exile with the rest of the yard. Opponent's ripping threats, we're ripping removal spells. It's just kind of who stumbles first, or in our case, who finds a black source first. A-okay with going down to 4 because that's not 3, so I'm not in bolt range. The opponent's not going to be able to sandbag any spells from here on out. So take game 3. Go to match 5. Sitting at 4-0, 4-0, playing for the trophy. Pretty good hand to play for the trophy with. Spire Bluff Channeler, so up against probably mURktide. You have the upkeep bolt. Hope they don't have Delirium here because I want to be able to Bowmaster down this Channeler. Since they don't, we'll take the opportunity to kill the Channeler and clog up the ground to stop Ragavan. This attack in means they probably either have a second Ragavan or a mURktide that they want to get down. But I do have Terminate on my turn to avoid Counterspell, but they have Force of Negation. So, unfortunately, with the way you see our hand shaping out, that Force of Negation, I think, probably just won them this game. And that's just, like, not a card I ever intend to play around in this spot. Like, I'd rather play around Spell Pierce and Counterspell than Force of Negation. Now, I probably, while we've got the stack showing here, showing that they had Counterspell, Spell Snare, and Force Negation, if I expected them to have Force Negation, which there was a chance because they did play out that mURktide pretty aggressively and unprotected, chance they had Force of Negation. I could have waited to go to their turn and Terminate on their turn to play around that, but that wouldn't play around Counterspell, Spell Pierce, Spell Snare. Unfortunately, my opponent just kind of had all of the options, so not much I can really do about them having a little bit of everything. But yeah, just know that playing out the mURktide pretty aggressively could be a very big indicator that they have Force of Negation. But again, I'm not in a position with this hand to play around Force of Negation, especially if I have the Terminate that I'm there staring at. Dead to mURktide in the air to get them down to 1. If I had an army token before that last attack, we could have added an extra power to it. But ultimately cannot. So we die to a 4/4 mURktide. Feels pretty bad. Sideboarding against mURktide, boarding out some Ragavans, boarding out some Inquisitions because they don't hit mURktide itself, or like Fury, Subtlety, stuff like that. And board out a couple Thoughtseizes on the play because I want to be more aggressive. Thoughtseize on the draw is a little bit better because if you can like deal with the turn 1 Rag and then have a Thoughtseize, really solid. But Thoughtseize on the play, less exciting when you're trying to be more proactive. Go to game 2 again, just like game 1. Get to Bowmaster down the Channeler. Little Bowmaster value going on. Then hopefully we can go to game 3 or go to turn 3 and just have like Thoughtseize into Goyf or something. Or in the face of Unlicensed Hearse, probably just like Thoughtseize into Double Shadow. Counter Merc Bobble is pretty okay with me. The 5/5 mURktide. Got the Terminate. Ping ourselves to grow these shadows just a little bit. Like pinging myself adds 2 power to the board, where pinging them only takes 1 damage effectively. Effectively, like literally 1 damage. So we get to go to game number 3. All the marbles. Really good opening hand. Got removal, hand disruption, threat. Action. Can you imagine our opponent playing Ledger Shredder in the year of Bowmaster? Uh, which I'm honestly really thrilled to see because everybody keeps saying, oh, Ledger Shredder makes Bowmaster dead. And I keep arguing that I don't think that's the case at all. And that's what we're kind of seeing here is this Bowmaster does not look very good in the face of a 3/5 Ledger Shredder. Oh, second Bowmaster. Well, that'll surely stop Ledger Shredder. That's the saving grace we needed was just second Bowmaster. But no, opponent just had a really, really aggressive curve out here. Had the interaction, had the threats, had the lands. Literally nothing we could do about that one. Having turn one Ragavan that your opponent has to answer into turn two Shredder plus Bobble to outgrow Bolt, into turn three removal spell, the Unholy Heat on my Tarmogoyf plus a mURktide. Nah, no chance in hell are we ever standing up to that draw. So I'll take that one. Like, if I'm not gonna beat the absolute nut hand out of mURktide, sure, we'll accept that L with grace and dignity and move on with our day. But other than that, Jun looked pretty good. Like, I keyed in on the scam matchups. We saw scam multiple times. We beat it multiple times. We beat Jun Saga really nice. I've seen players like Respect the Cat and Sanatoider playing a lot of Jun Saga recently and doing extraordinarily well with it. So, not surprised to see that deck in the league a bit. We beat up on Prowess. I say beat up. It was pretty close against Prowess. But as far as like cards that did well, cards I was impressed by, cards I wasn't impressed by, Fable, again, I thought was really, really good. Fable and Croxa both, and just like getting the game over. Inquisition, a little meh. Fatal Push, a little meh. If you're expecting a bunch of mURktide and you think they are going to be running Ledger Shredders, then I could see like dropping a Heat and a Bolt for another push or two, or dropping an Inquisition for another push, something like that. Inquisition itself was okay. Rag was good. Goyf was good. Bowmaster pinged off some dudes. Yeah, like everything in the main deck is pretty value oriented. There's not really a ton to like or not like there. In the sideboard, the Stone of Eric's probably a little too cute. I wish I had a better option than like just another Nihil Spellbomb, but it might be worth just running another Spellbomb or like even a fourth Spellbomb so that you're able to pretty aggressively like nuke their yard and draw a card and just do that like whenever you need value. So that's probably fine. EE was good, Terminate good, Veil of Summer good in a scam world. Alpine Moon was fine. We did see a Saga deck, but the less Saga we see, the worse Alpine Moon gets. Blood Moon, however, I'm very, very skeptical of Blood Moon right now. Like, I think it's really good to have it in the board when you do run into like Tron or Amulet or something. But we saw Scam, Mono Red Prowess, Blue Red mURktide. 4 out of our 5 matches were against Blood Moon decks. So there's a very good chance that those 2 Blood Moons in the sideboard are probably better off as just like a second or fourth Terminate or another Fable or something to help with those grindy decks and just get rid of the Blood Moons. But if we start seeing a shift from like the mid-range decks, the scam decks, to more over-the-top stuff trying to fight scam, then having access to Blood Moon could be the right call. And I do think it's fairly free in this deck with the one basic swamp and the very low reliance on green, plus Giganta out of the board. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Jund Shadow right now. If you like the video, then feel free to drop a like on the YouTube channel, drop a subscription. Doesn't cost you anything, just lets you know whenever new videos go live. Also have a link down below to the Twitch channel if you want to come check out a live stream. I have a link to the Discord if you want to come join the Control Freak Discord, talk about all variations of Shadow and non-Shadow decks. And then a link to the Twitch, or not Twitch, the Twitter down below. Whenever a stream goes live, Twitter's the first place it gets updated. So if you want to know whenever you're going live with a new variation of Shadow, that's the place to follow to check it out. Otherwise, hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company. I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.